Thank you, Chitra. Kiran bhai, would you like to just start?
And it will take some few time. It was Chitra. It was wonderful. You made my presentation more simpler. Thank you for it, Chitra. I'm saying you.
Thank you.
Is the screen visible now?
But I'm not able to see our screen. Yeah?
Is the screen live?
Is the screen live?
Yes, I can see the browser window.
Yeah.
Yes, now the
Yes.
presentation.
Now it's okay.
Pointer chalu kare. Yes. Now I think something is there on the screen to say. Yeah. Building frugally, stories from building our home. I thank Gubi to give me this an opportunity to interact with a very large forum. Um, uh, uh, at the age of 53 in 2013, in the month of May, we have started living in the new home at Haripa village, 6 kilometers from Bhuj. Nearest settlement, Haripur, is approximately 2 kilometers away. House is surrounded by farms in the lap of Bhuj rich wilderness. Idea behind shifting from Bhuj was something like one per ashram. After graduation, started working towards many aspects of a life. Almost 3 decades just passed. At this junction of our life, most of the dream we felt fulfilled. Not sure about roots of this feeling at that time. Was it touched by contentment or another dissolution? But we decided to follow this path. 3 decades of acquiring, now take a pause and learn to leave it behind. These acquisitions, one by one, to lighten the journey of life. Stories from building home are based on this state of our mind. As we have relatively limited fund to build this home, frugal approach was the only way. Um, I'll explain the site. We have purchased 1,000 square yard plot, which I shared with Bina's sisters and Prajesh. We shared this half, and on the site we have a 9 mature coconut tree, and in between these two row of a coconut, we have put our living strip, which contains the entrance veranda, and then the living area, then dining and kitchen, store, the back veranda, which is interacting with the courtyard here, and a common toilet. Uh, this living strip we built with that's a major part of our building. We built with Adobe and all Westwood. Uh, uh, through the courtyard, we enter into the entrance veranda of our bedroom. Our bedroom is built with the local stone. Basically, two kind of a stone. One is a sandstone, another is a crystalline limestone, which is a random in nature. The west wall, because of I want to make it thicker wall. For the leg angle, I use a crystalline limestone for that. In a section, like the old mud wall is sheltered by a generous overhang. The entrance veranda and the backyard veranda, the backyard veranda which is interacting with the personal court. And the bedroom is built with the stone. This is a crystalline limestone thick wall on a west and very low because it so it is not exposed to the heat of the sun on a west, and thermal comfort was a concern. The east wall is a 9-inch thick wall with the sandstone, and we have built this home. I need Sadhya, please can you help me with them? Because it was blocking some of the text here. We have built this home on the walk of life. We have gathered and learned many principles which not only save money, but it also aid the values and created a new values in our life. This house is built on principle of 5 principles: use of a local material and knowledge. This constraint restrict you a lot in your design thinking, but if you accept this restriction, it will open up a path to create a contemporary language which belongs to you and the place and that place. When you use local material, it is affordable. As it is local, as it is local, because it's no transportation costs and other costs are involved in that. This being local material, to use this, steel is also locally available, and that this all makes local material is swabhavgat frugal, is intrinsically frugal. Wastage is not a waste. Do not waste it. Dictionary meaning of a waste: an action of use that result in unnecessary loss of something valuable. Look around you. There is enough waste available at throwaway price or at no price. When you upcycle waste, you are not only frugal, but adding value back to something that was lost unnecessarily. Upcycling is swabhavgat frugal. Traditional wisdom is intrinsically frugal, as traditions are developed to sustain life in confined bioregion. Spending less or judiciously as a first principle. Traditions are local, not global, therefore deeply rooted. If you learn from tradition, validate it in your context and incorporate that wisdom in your design and building, you are building not only frugally, but environmentally sensitive. Traditions are swabhavgat frugal. Masters are master, so relatively cost you more. But if you look at the lesser skill, if opportunity is given, there are many workers open to learn and upgrade their skills. What one need to do is put trust and support them in their search. This set of people can produce good quality work and become master. This symbiotic relationship with the workers and artisans is swabhavgat frugal. Learn to live with Mother Nature. If you respect nature, nature will definitely respect you. It is a sure deal. No MOU, no money transaction is expected. It works for sure, sometime beyond your expectation. such approach is Swabhavagat, not only frugal but super frugal. Due to the constraint of a time, I have picked up only two stories from building my home. One, I want to share the traditional knowledge and how much you can save if you understand the tradition scientifically and incorporate it into your contemporary use. Kutch has a tradition of a sandbed foundation in which the stone layers is being laid in layers, and the spaces between two stone is being filled it with the sand, and it will ensured by putting running water into it. And when I ask the traditional artisan how it works, then they say it's very simple because the foundation is confined from all three sides. So stone are not going this way or that way. Yeah. And if you make, if you fill up the interstices spaces with the sand, all the low transferring become very stable because there is no scope for this stone to move or settle. And I trust this this local technology, and my quantity for the foundation masonry was 90 cubic meter. If I build this foundation with a cement mortar, and considering UCR cement consumption 1.75 bag per cubic meter, it saved 160 bags of cement at the time. It saved 36,000 rupees in 2011 when I started building, and this cost is approximately 10 to 12 rupees per square feet was worked out. This is one example I say, but in building intelligently, building not only with the idea of saving cost, but with the complete technical understanding. I have saved at many places in all different elements of the building. The second stories are artisanal stories. Ajay, Madhu Singh, Sravan, Ramilaben, and Raman, Pangu Singh, and Madhu Singh. They came to my site as an excavation laborer. One day when the excavation was about to finish, I started chatting with them and on the site, and on the chat I asked a question that what are your dreams? Then they say Raman, uh, Ajay and Pangu, they immediately responded. We wanted to become an artisan. We want to become a karigar. So we earn well. Right now we are earning 225 rupees. But if we have a skill, then we can earn more. And then I said, from today you are an artisan. Tomorrow you will going to lay my foundation stones. And they they were open to learn new skills. They were open to upgrade their skills. So this team, they have built all my walls. They made all my adobes for the walls. They've done the stone masonry, unforceable masonry, foundation, even Ramila Ben, who when someone was working and he has to go back to his home, and the floorboard work was to complete because of we were approaching the rain and the construction site requires certain pace. Then she said, okay, we can also make floorboards, and Ramila Ben and who remained, they took a leadership and they started making a floorboard, and eventually then Ajay and Pangu Singh and Raman also fixed my roof ceiling. Right now, they are the Raman is progressed to become a contractor. He's become very busy contractor, in a most wanted contractor in his region in Madhya Pradesh. Ajay become because his hand and eye was for the finishing, so he become a flooring contractor. Ramilaben and Marushing, they are taking care of their farm, and but the Pangu Singh become a faculty in a Karigashala, and after my home each year 30 students is teaching this skill. Right up in last year, the students he has taught, the score was more than 250. So this when someone seriously want to learn something, and if you are able to put trust, and your house become a ground to learn, and then in 10 years time, this is the what result you can get. I call it as a frugal. So some of the material that I'm running through, because and please remind me the time. This is the salvage wood from the alam that we use for the understructure. This wood is from the Kandla. On a Kandla pot, we are importing wood from all over the world. They convert this lumber into the timber, and the side of the log is produce lots of waste. This waste is available in 2011. The 5 rupees, 4 rupees a kg, and teakwood waste was costing 8 rupees a kg at the time. I use it for the ceiling and making door window, and this country tile is become now nobody is making country tile in Kutch region. No potter is making. And with the new aspiration, village people are breaking their house and building with the contemporary material. And this style is available at 2 rupees per piece at your doorstep. It's a crystalline limestone, such a beautiful stone that we have. I always feel lucky. These are some of the slides of my home that you're probably waiting for. This is from the main road. It looks like this, the country tile and some mud roof. My house is covered with the green nature all around, so difficult to take photographs. This is again a front view, little closer. From the side, this is clear story window, and this is actually a bay window, and this is our living area. This is common toilet, and this is utility space, and that's a bedroom. More closer look of a gable end side. This wall, since almost 9 years now, without any maintenance, with more than 2.5 feet overhang, is working. It's working. This is the way how it look roofs. This all 9 coconut trees that gives us not only coconut but some of the coconut oil that we use for various uses. This is entrance. This neem tree was there, and this is a common veranda. This is a common veranda. We say where all our family gathering, evening with the swing we pass. This covered veranda is followed by the common courtyard. This is entrance veranda. This is a vegetable garden street in the front of veranda. This is how it looks from inside. If the white walls are not painted, it's plastered with glutin, casein, and china clay. It's done by the Ayer and Raman and Pango Singh. This kitchen platform, if you see there are wood, it's a thick wood, but it's all waste. It is all waste. And this is mezzanine floor, and the staircase, and this door is leading into the storeroom. From other side, from the kitchen side, how it looks is a living space. The living space from the mezzanine is a courtyard. It's in a backside veranda, followed by the courtyard. Now the green grapes wine is doing very well with lots of flowers. The central private courtyard from the above. This is a bedroom veranda with the cement IPS and sandstone wall. From outside, I kept it as it is. I have not sized it because I don't want to create a waste. From inside, the room looks like this. Even the floor is wooden. That's the last waste that thick wood waste we converted into the floor. On the ledge you can see what kind of floor we have on the ground. This sandstone is like a handrest like this. It's a small studies here, and this is a multi-purpose ledge and small library. This is our bathroom. In footprint is quite large, almost 100 square feet. But I have not used any industrial tile except under my water closet, where I need use acid to wash it. The timber mat is made out of the wooden waste. This is what backyard look like, and almost decade past, Vanprasth ashram phase is about to complete. In couple of months, journey is on. To be what you are is first step to live frugally. Yat pinde tat brahman. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran Bhai. Such a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Chitra.
Thank you.
Your presentations are also very frugal, which is very, very interesting.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Actually, I've been asked to moderate, but I think our moderation is going to be more of a discussion. We wanted enough time for audience to get all the questions or anything which they want to ask. So while they can type and send the questions, which Prachi will collate after some time, I would invite Sid and Suhasini to give comments, maybe define frugality. What do you think? Is simplicity enough? Is frugality enough? Whatever. Please.
Can I see the people?
Suhasini
I can't see anybody.
Yes, you have 489 people.
Well, I
You have
can't see
489
anybody. I can still see the screen of Kiran.
Lost 500 at one stage.
you said?
Yes. I don't know. Maybe Prachi can answer your question, but yes, Suhasini.
Okay. Okay, I go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Listening.
But we are not able to see you,
Because
Suhasini.
I've never.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we
What?
can't. Again, I get Kiran Bhai's what do you,
Anyway,
PPTs.
as long as you can hear me, be happy. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to start with a couple of things. I mean, fantastic presentation, like Dharmesh said. It really illustrates well what both of you mean by frugality. But the thing that I miss most is how do you actually define it in a universal fashion so that it is able to convey the intent behind the idea of building frugally. What is the context and why do we intend to build frugally? Let me just finish and then you can. Because for me, when I look at frugality, it's, to put it simply, is make the most of the least, but that doesn't really explain how multi-space use or multi-use of elements or minimizing needs and maximizing use, all these different things actually go into it. And in the end, frugality actually becomes, in its essence, a sense of liberation, where you can actually rise above being tied to so many support systems and crutches to achieve what you really need to achieve for life to be rich, diverse, and fulfilling, right? This being said, both the presentations with the projects that you showed, it does not address one of the key factors that most architects face is in your practice. There are certain roadblocks, no matter how arrived you are and how woke you are, and you know how to tackle several issues. There are 3 or 4 roadblocks that we face when we deal with designing and building for somebody else, whether it's a client, a developer, an institution, an agency. One of the first factors that come in, like when I looked at the wall that was done for your school,
I can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
nice.
Yeah.
You now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Better.
Yes, I can, but
Yeah.
maybe there is some connection issues.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
A
So
roadblock
let me.
in that after one sentence, 1 or 2
Yeah. So
sentences.
I was talking about how to take this concept of frugality, the way we perceive it, as into our practice. The roadblocks that we have when we put it into practice is basically the first thing that comes up, which speaks a lot and says nothing, is costing. When you try to convince a client or a developer or somebody, how do you actually convince them? First thing the contractor or the client say, are you sure about costing? Because conventional framework of costing does not allow for this kind of work. Second is capacity. Do we have labor which is skilled? Do we have equipment? Can it actually deal with all the different challenges that the conventional construction kind of messily covers over, but is never seen by anybody? The third is time. And time is a very important factor in most people's mind, even if they take much longer than what they plan, because it's a cost of money, especially when it comes to developers and institutions and agency. Usually it's done with borrowed money. And last, which I find is the most difficult, is preference. People have preferences based on a certain comfort zone of the known. Whenever they go out of the know and the what they already know, their acceptance levels drop, and they use, how do I convince my family, or how do I convince the court trustees, or how do I convince it? So I find that no matter how good you have and in your practice, in your experience, in your knowledge, and in your understanding, come to a space where you know that frugality is actually a sense of creating a certain liberation that goes beyond just one project, to be able to convey it and market it, sorry the word, market it, to be able to bring it into mainstream practice.
Okay. So
I'm done.
You're done. Thank you. Very long question. Can I take from the whatever I got? I wrote down some things, and I like the idea of mentioning it as a mainstream practice. So we always felt that we should do only mainstream. And for mainstreaming, one thing which we understood was that we should be able to give costing to the clients before they start. So we have worked at both the time and labor for any of these kind of constructions to be done. A lot of investment we did ourselves. We bought our own machine, we worked on our own projects. Some of the projects were used as spaces for experimentation and learning. So luckily some of the clients were mentors for us. We've been in this situation as any other architect would be. So it's a mainstream practice in a city. Everybody comes and they want to know the cost, and we are able to tell a cost before they do and before they start. The capacity building was basically, I must again mention that it just happened through serendipity, but because of the team one created. One worked with a set of people, and they are still with me together. We're all together, and it's not the team I made. I didn't know construction as much as they didn't know. So we all learned together, and we all created this whole scenario that everybody will have work all the time. 30 years since we started this, I still know the same people, and they still have good enough work because they've improved. Many masons have built their own homes, and the children are studying well or married well, etc. Preferences is something we can't help. I say it's the aspiration of the people who come, and aspiration of middle class is what we are all the time facing. So Pinterest and Flickr and those pictures do come to us, but we do talk. For us to design just a house, it takes us 6 months. A lot of talking, engagement happens. And so this continues. And for a practice which is 30-year-old, and we have done about 700 projects, I don't see we need to be marketing more. We really can't handle more sometimes. So this is just about enough for us. Now, your question about I'll talk about my presentation didn't talking about frugality. It's, in the very beginning, I said I did a lot of soul searching on the definition of frugality. And one of the definition of frugality, or one of the more, explanation of frugality was also that you would be frugal only after you're comfortable. And that was pretty right. When you're very comfortable, okay, now I have the next meal coming, that's when you get to be frugal. Poor is not frugal. A poor is poor, and that's all the person can afford. The poor cannot really have the bandwidth of thought to be frugal. So frugality, in this sense, said if many things are kind of, most of the needs are, you have got it or you're assured of, then you will start becoming frugal. And I was reading about various examples of these tech giants who are frugal. So then I started looking at this, another meanings, and one was this enjoying simple pleasures. And for me, that project of Atelier, the school, was that it was just enjoying making it because we gave ourselves certain challenges. So So that's why I chose that project to show. Showing our own homes built of CSCBs, for me, it doesn't challenge you both, Siddharth and Suhasini. So that's why I didn't take the usual home project. I hope I have answered and we can still discuss. I really can't see you also. I'll just keep hearing.
I can see all of
Sid,
you.
would you like to add?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful talk. Very, very humbling. So much of it is what we go through on a daily basis. But I love the way both of you make connections, whether it's connections with the client, whether it's connections with the site, whether it's connections with the workers. And I think it talks about who we are as people and how we can bring our idea of lifestyle, close these loops, close these connections. That was very, very interesting. When I think about frugality, I'm a bit confused. Is frugality, as Chitra was saying, relative, or is there something which is absolute? I think it's somewhere in between. It depends on who you are, where you're coming from, and therefore your definition of frugality will be a little different. There would be some universal thing that both of you have done, that all of us keep doing in our practices, that would in some way define frugal. But as Kiran Bhai was saying, using local materials. Sadly, in most urban areas, there are hardly any local materials left. We are left with the same range, the same design palette that is available all over the country now. And therefore, having a design criteria to use those becomes a little difficult. The other point that I looked at was that, does frugality bring about a certain design aesthetic? Is there something that we are saying is associated with using materials, with having a certain skill set, having a certain design intent? That is a question. But most importantly, I feel frugality is also about building less. If we can somehow convince clients to build less, if we can ourselves be exponents of this thought, it will bring about an overall change in thinking, and I think overall the amount of wastage that we are doing all around.
Yeah. So for me, I'm sorry, Kiran, please reply. Shouldn't be the one talking all the time.
No, it's okay. Kiran, by add something.
Yeah, in this conversation, the mainstreaming. I'm little confused about the mainstream term as a mainstream term. When I was reading a report, it was some government report, and saying 80%, more than 80% of the contemporary construction work is built with involving some or other form of earth. So, and we are calling earth as a alternative, and we are questioning this from our professional background, living in some kind of urban fabric, serving for the urban fabric. And we say the concrete and steel or similar material as a mainstream material, and mud as an alternative material. I think I'm not disagree with this question, but I have a question which is mainstream. I have a question which is mainstream. I'm confused. And Sid, I really the building less is only way, because you have pointed out two things. When you're living in a city like Mumbai or metropolitan city, where is the local material? There is no local material. There is, because there is no local culture also, because it's all are coming from all over the part of the country or a world, and they are exploring their life in a there are contemporary the way. to find out the opportunity and chasing the definition of a new the development. I'm not don't want to get into all this, but Suhasini, what I feel, all my 4 points is universal. If you use local material wherever you are, whether you are in Brazil or in Tamil Nadu or in Himachal Pradesh, if you use local material, because it requires no transportation, it saves your cost. It also the skill is locally available, and definitely you save, and you are the cost, but you are also, it becomes environmental sensitive and environmental friendly material at the time. And I think creating a good relationship in spite of looking at contracting is only way. There is another way to create a relationship with the construction artisans and include them in your life. Go and create such possibility is also a universal possibility, because we work our work in Indonesia, Iran, wherever other part of our world. I think that this possibility everybody is open to. But all the construction that probably the larger institution building and the government building cannot be built like this. But one house, any personal house, can be built. Of course, this possibility is restricted almost fully in a city fabric, because all multi-story building apartments, they probably don't allow this possibility. But when you are living in a city and apartment, you are limiting your choice to live fully. I believe that's my very personal subjective statement that I'm making. I'm sorry for that. And yeah, this is what I want to tell. Yeah.
Well,
If you respect
thank you. I think Chitra has something to say, but I just want to
respect you. This is my all my 5 points is universal. I'm saying.
Yes. So thanks, Kiran bhai. I just want to say there are several questions.
Universal.
Okay.
There are many questions. I think while you can talk, but I think Prachi will probably has collated some of the questions together, and she would ask. There are many questions. Prachi, would you like to start by asking, because it is some of the questions are on aesthetics. I see some are on materials, some are directly addressed to one of the speakers, and some are in general. So I think each one of you can just feel free to respond. Prachi?
Sure, sir. So yeah, there are lots of questions coming in, and they're talking about specific scenarios, and there are some which are general. So I'll start off with this question, which is, as a student, how do I learn about these materials and construction techniques in depth? Are there certain books to recommend?
Oh.
Tell the teacher to tell you.
Can I give answer?
Yes, please.
Let's
Go
just
ahead.
do it short. Just do it short,
Yeah,
Kiran.
there are many questions,
Yeah.
and we have about half an hour.
Like wherever you go, and if you are really open to learn, the masters are right there. Believe me, this is not a spiritual statement, but it's a fact of a life.
Yeah, but that doesn't help a student. So I would say tell the student
it doesn't make whether you are professional or student, doesn't make any difference. If you want to learn, master is right there,
Let me speak.
and you start learning from that moment. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So for the student, it is mostly, it will very good if you keep going out and observing the various ways of construction which is happening, and please don't get attached to only the way you're seeing in the screen, the kind of works that they alone are the kind of works which are right. There are lots of rights, and you have to adapt it to the context and as you learn.
Nice of you, Chitra. It's very, very well said.
Thank you. Yeah, which is the next question?
So here, I mean, this is a very common theme in many questions, which is how can frugality be achieved in urban areas, or can a high-rise building be created frugally?
Yes. Which city you are talking about? I don't need to answer. Each city has a slum. Even Bhuj town, 250,000 population. 40% of people are living in a slum in Bhuj city. Yeah. Each city that I visited, and I so far, I'm in, at least in India, each city has some slum. I don't know about Chandigarh because I'm not noticed any slums in Chandigarh, probably on the face. Yeah, and the more population are living in a slum. They have built frugally. If you go to Dharavi, if you go to Bandra, if you go to visit this slum, you will learn a lot how to build a frugally. No. So, what city we are talking about? I'm a little confused. I'm asking a question. I'm floating this question.
No, but this is mostly for urban areas where people live in many high rise and all. I think this question could be dealt with maybe some changes in the lifestyle, which have been mentioned earlier by one of the speakers.
No, I would rather say is the choices the person makes, and there are certain choices the person can't help, especially in the urban areas, if you're especially taking a rent or you're buying a home, because that's what is available for you. So then there is just no choice. You would go with where your pocket allows you, your EMI allows you. So sorry, sorry, you can't help it. But let's say if you're going to be building a structure, one of the ways you can be most frugal is that by using one material to the largest extent. That's why I showed the pictures of Assam and of Wardha and then of Baker. Same material used in different ways, performing various functions, but just the brick. And that's possible in Kerala. But if you do the same jali walls in Himachal, then you're being stupid because it will be so cold inside. So then you will use a different context. Yes, you will learn from local, but apologies to Kiran Bhai, slums are not the best places where you will learn from. You will learn from local good constructions which are happening in villages maybe for a building which if you want to make. What I see as future is
very subjective because when I pass through Bandra or Dharavi, I observe and I found something interesting there. It's subjective. So when we
but that is in your privileged life, you will find that interesting, but it's not interesting for the people living there. So it will be difficult to accept it as a design possibility.
That's not true.
Sorry?
Well, I think,
I know what
Prachi, can you
Siddharth
just combine a few more
Suhasini
questions so that they can...
Sure. So there are several questions already. So here's a question. Is there a repository of local districts, local materials by districts for India? I think that's what the question is.
It was there. Hatko had done it in sometimes in 80s. We'll have to ask Hatko to find it out. It was done in 80s.
Actually, there is a book called the Army Engineer's Handbook, which was last published in the 1930s, and sometime in 1950s it was reviewed. If you can find a copy of this book, this has by zone and by geological thing, an extremely good repertoire of building materials, building technologies, and how local skills have been used to do various things with it. I came across a book when I was in Old Delhi in Nai Sadak. Have made many photocopies of it for many people, but this is an excellent book on somebody, I don't know, British India, went through the country, even has correlated roofing with climate, rainfall, sunlight, heat, and everything. It's an excellent book. It's called the Army Engineer's Handbook, which was used in the late 19th century, and it has been edited 3 times over.
Suhasini, can you please
Thanks,
repeat the
Suhasini.
title of book?
It's called the Army Engineer's Handbook.
Army Engineers Handbook.
Thanks, Suhasini. So I'll move on to the next question, which is, have any of these techniques been adapted for disaster rehabilitation projects, where there's a constraint of time, budget, and scale?
I'll say, Dharmesh bhai, you can also please add to, because you were also part of this project, so you can definitely correct me if I am not wrong or somewhere I miss. In Bihar, Kosi rehabilitation work, in ground reality was that the old wetland of structure was not damaged, but those structure, so-called pakka, was built on the way of water, was covered off and collapsed. In all wetland of structure, the life was come back because water was there, dove was washed out, wherever it submerged or and to put back the mud was only a question of 1 week after receding of water, and life was came back. So this kind of technology is developed by the community in response to how the nature works there. There are regular floods, so they have devised this kind of a construction method. And in most of the Sarsha and Madhepura region, most of the community has restored their house within some few weeks. And this is one example. Another example is in a Kashmir earthquake. 22,000, more than 22,000 houses was built in Tangdar and Uri village by just allowing people to salvage their collapse material from the collapse houses and build with their traditional knowledge, and in 3 months of time, this 22,500 houses was built in just 3 months in Kashmir earthquake. So in a disaster, if you involve local knowledge, local material, and local artisans, your work become super fast. Even our Kutch, we have completed our rehabilitation work in 2.5 years. And that was considered one of the fastest rehabilitation work in the world context also. So I hope I have given you answer.
Yeah, just to add to that, because like recently people in center, which is Vivek Raval and all, they have published the temporary shelter guidelines, which also includes a lot of traditional technologies for many disaster areas in the country. It's done for the NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, and it is available on their website. And but yes, the experience has been always the traditional technologies and the frugality techniques, what we are talking about today, have always survived the test of time, including the disasters, because they are built and managed by the people themselves, and they are not like this, unlike the structures which are heavy and concrete, where you need a lot more other technological inputs to build pakka structures, And I mean, I would go, but even the Ministry of Rural Housing has that on their website. But what is happening on the ground may not be exactly that, because pakka and kacha, the debate in India is quite a hot topic, and people think only concrete is pakka.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
I don't think we will probably have a session on that with different experts. Yes, Prachi, you can
Yeah.
take more questions, please, because we have
So
15-20 more minutes. Yeah.
yes, sure. So there was a follow-up question. So you can decide if you want to take this up. But the question is, do you think frugality in architecture is mostly, towards in the private sector? It is also important to convey towards the public and government sector. So your comments on that?
Yes,
Well,
obviously. Yeah, you have to. Everybody
why
has
not?
to.
Why not?
Okay,
Right.
next question. Yeah.
Yes. So now these questions are more specific and based on the case studies that you showed. So this is for Kiran sir. The question
Yeah.
is, was it difficult to construct along with trees on the project site for the house?
So, no. On the contrary, the 9 coconut trees that was in a row, I measured the distance between these 2 rows. When I was designing home, I respected this distance, and I also in my section I also consider what distance I need. And in one place in my central courtyard, the coconut tree was the common toilet was not fitting well, and it was coming very close to my roof. Then I created one space for the tree to grow. And thereafter we have 2 cyclones, which was a very heavy wind speed that our house has witnessed. And in a first cyclone, the spars, like the leaves of a coconut trees has displayed some country tile roof here and there. Otherwise, there is it was safe. And while constructing, on the contrary, there was no such problem we have faced. We have not faced any problem due to the tall trees.
Right.
On
And
the
there's some
contrary,
questions coming
whatever
in.
said, it has give a good working environment. Yeah.
Sure. Right. So there's some more questions about the sand pit stone foundation that you talked about. So
Yeah.
one question is, how many floors can be constructed using this?
In Kutch tradition, I have seen ground plus 2-story structure with this kind of a foundation.
Right.
And load bearing structure. This is for the load bearing structure. It's not a beam column structure. It's not a beam column structure, but it's a load bearing structure. There are many such houses, not one, many such houses. They have survived in 2001 earthquake. That was a super massive earthquake that we have experienced in our region so far.
And can this foundation be used in other climates and soil conditions? For example, humid and wet areas?
Oh, that is like in such case, I think if it's scouring is a main concern. Scouring, if your foundation is prone to scour, then this technique may not work. And like wetlands, probably this technique may not work because otherwise because it's in a wetland, the soil is saturated and saturated at what depth, till what depth, that makes the whether it is buildable or not buildable. I think for such in such cases, this kind of foundation may not work, in my opinion.
Right. And there are some.
Yeah, there are some. Yeah, please, Prachi, go ahead. Yes.
Yes, yes. So, there's this question for Chitra ma'am. The question is, are earth blocks reusable after dismantling?
Yes, if you dismantle them properly, you can reuse them, just like the way you can reuse bricks. You can crush them and make earth blocks again.
Right. And another question is, do compressed earth blocks use cement? For mortar, I guess. That might be the question.
Yeah, so these are
I think.
compressed stabilized earth
Yeah, very
blocks. Sorry? These are compressed stabilized earth blocks. So compressed stabilized earth blocks do use a stabilizer, and in most cases, we use cement up to about 5 to 8%. And the same constituent of the block is the mortar with little more water.
Right.
Okay? Yeah.
Yes. And there's some more questions about materials. So this question is using recycled plastic as a building material a good idea?
Well, one has to come to terms that we have so much plastic now available, and we have to think of it as a building material and it's recycled and done. So the protocols of how recycling is happening and how we're going to use is something we have to learn and establish. But we have to consider plastic as the future material, future resource than just material.
Prachi, just 1 second. There's some information on the chat box for everybody. There are a couple of viewers who have shared some books and some other references. So I have just put the chat. So some of the listeners can just do that. Look at that. There are a couple of questions which are very generic. Like, for example, does building frugally the building frugality involve critical regionalism, and how do they vary ideologically? I don't know if Sid, Suhasini, any of you want to. Can I repeat the question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Does
regionality really
building
counts. It has to be regional.
Does building frugally involve critical regionalism, and how do they vary ideologically? A similar question is also there about how do you take care of aesthetics, but I guess building frugally is quite aesthetic anyways. But yes, any of our provocateurs, Suhasini, Sid?
I think I would let the two presenters actually address this question, because
Yeah.
we are supposed to just be part of
Wearing a sweater in a Kashmir is a regionalism, or wearing a dhoti or a lungi in a Kerala is a regionalism. I have no answer. I'm just have a question on a question.
I actually resonate with Kiran Bhai in this, because the word regionalism basically is derived from the fact that what is the challenge or the context or the responses to that, and anything that responds to the context is going to be regional. There's nothing like, like the sand foundation of Kiran Bhai basically conveys the meaning that you did not grasp, that this is a response to the need, the challenge, the topography, and the context. And the idea is that you use the methodology and not the solution. That's it. And that obviously leads to regionalism. The
Yeah.
responses are always based on the conditions.
It's also the fact that the phrase critical, the way modernism, and it was like an anti-modernism phrase. But yes, even any building, even now, if it works with the context in terms of especially the climate, it is regional. And the material you use depends upon what materials are available and what skills are available. And skills keep changing, keep evolving, and even materials keep changing. What's next?
Prachi, you want to continue questions? You have collated.
Yes, yes, sure. This is also a running theme in many of the questions is how do you take into account the costs? So sometimes traditional materials like rammed earth, wattle and daub and building with them turns out to be more expensive than using conventional brick and RCC.
We've done enough
Yeah,
and
I
more
agree with
work
that.
in
Yeah,
preparing
I agree with that.
estimates.
If you my building, cost of my building was in 2012-13, 600 rupees a square feet. That is an exact. It was not exact 600, little less than 600 rupees square feet. If I have participated myself in the building process, right from designing to the everything. Yeah, if I create a layers of contractors and consultants to come and complete my house, then it become expensive. That's why in my slide I mentioned the masters are master and sometimes expensive. So only building doesn't only material don't make some economical or affordable. Your approach of how you how you have built, what thought process has been involved in that, what you are intended, how much money you have, because sometimes Yogananda is obvious, he always say crack a joke that many client come and they ask, I want a low cost house at any cost. Such attitude or no, this all cost of your building is based on many more. It's little complex, I believe. Yeah. Sorry, I'm done.
Yeah, but it doesn't help the student again, Kiran Bhai, to help. So it is important, student or the young architect, that we have to work at, and it will be probably in one or two cases that where you will look at the time and motion study and the materials used. So do study your quantity surveying in the classes well. So you have a basic idea how much time how many masons are needed for 1 cubic meter of wall, or how much time it takes to make a block, and things like these. These are available. Use that, work at rate analysis, and figure out the costs. It's all possible. I'm saying this because we have done it and we do it for every project. We give the costing earlier, we work everything out before we start a project. And that's how we say we have mainstreamed our practice, where we use different ecological methods or ecological materials. But it is possible if we work with the engineering and the science which is available for us. And it is important, if this kind of practice needs to become more widespread, that it follows a certain dictates of the convention placed. So whether we build here or whether we build in Bhagalpur or in Bhopal, we work with estimates. It's not this dreamy ways that things will happen, you will work with people. No, because we have to make larger structures, we have to work with people who didn't know this kind. Yes, for that reason, you need to be aware of how to construct, and you need to understand soil, and again, figure it out with various scientific spaces available in the country where you test the different materials.
Well,
Do we
we are
have
in last
time for
few minutes. Yeah. I would
So
like
should we
to,
just take a last question?
yeah, maybe you can just pick up the last question, then, yes.
Sure. So yeah, this last question is building frugal is also having a frugal lifestyle eventually. So is that true for you?
Yes, it's like I see the frugality is a lifestyle and is a journey. It's not a place to reach, but is on the way you need to learn. That's a frugal in my way. Yeah, me and Bina, I'm digressing from the construction. Yeah, we were little after started living there away from the city. We reluctant to come to the city, and one day we have exhausted with the vegetables, and Bina said that how about we go to city to get the vegetables, and I say okay, let's check our kitchen garden, and we found one vegetable for that evening, and we postponed it. Next day morning, when I was working on a garden, I got another vegetable. That was a couple of spinach leaves that was left over because it was winter season was ongoing on. Yeah, the summer was approaching, and that way we keeps on getting one or another thing for another 3 to 4 days. Yeah, and 2 days we have with the dal and the other lentils that we have cooked, and that way one week we have prolonged to visit the city. So this is not in just to save money. It is this 1 week was we were very close to the nature, and we were very close to the nature spiritually, I say. And this is just a small example that what it is again very personal thing that I said. It may be universal or may not be universal. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not able to think that way. Yeah.
Thank you, Kiran Bhai.
Yeah, but I
So,
would rather say that
well, there are,
you look at buildings frugally, and then at that time you look at how lesser material you use, and or lesser types of material you use, and that's most important.
well, there are many questions with lot of very simple queries about construction to some references and all that. Uh, uh, KT sir is there. KT Ravindran has written the idea of regionalism assumes a center and a periphery. It's a Eurocentric worldview. Suhasini and Sid, would you like to wind up? We have a couple of minutes maybe on questions or whatever, and would like to thank all of you for giving your time. And we would try to bring 2 talks every month, uh, depending on our busy guppies who would be willing to come. Yes. Suhasini and Sid, I would like you to wind up.
Oh yeah. It was great. It was great.
I really appreciated the two presentations and all by the organizers to post this. Dharmesh taking charge of us and doing it, getting it done. And I feel that the idea of frugality in development and in terms of the whole economic aspect of development and the sociological aspect of development we may need to actually address it in a more comprehensive manner with a situation where it's not design built, practice designer, builder, and a client. This triangle that most architects face, which may not be so common among most of the goobies because our practices are very niche practices, and most of the people, after so many years of the kind of buildings we're doing, come to us for what we do. But actually, to address the conundrum that many of the questions say, how do you put this into practice, even if you learn, understand, and build an awareness? So the triangle between the designer, the builder, contractor, and the client needs to be addressed at some point. Thank you. Sid.
I've had the pleasure of visiting Kiran Bhai's house and Chitra's house, and I know that frugality is part of their lifestyle. It's something that they actually believe in, and it has a lot to do with asking the right questions and keeping on asking those questions. And that's something that whenever you're talking to a client, you cannot just accept the brief that is being handed out. You need to keep questioning, and it is with that questioning that you're able to define frugality within
available within the group, and we really hope that we would be able to interact through this platform based on the kind of expertise that is represented or the experience what we have. We have very rich experience all over the spread around the country with different practices, and I'm sure that this one of the few engagements we have started due to this limitations we have due to travel limitations and all that. There are many people who have good enough time, and people like Kiran Bhai, who hardly comes out, Chitra, who always shies away from this. Thank you so much for coming and answering a lot of questions. Sid and Suhasini, we will work out a format where we can provoke more and all that. I think today the time went into some questions, but nevertheless, I think the content and the questions were quite amazing. Thank you, Prachi and EDS team, Maitri platform, for doing all of our housekeeping and all that. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
you all.
Prachi. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Thanks.